One of the popular workflow tools in Drupal is Workbench, and Workbench moderation specifically. And they allow that kind of workflow to be developed, to be constructed using an administrative interface like this. And what this represents is basically transitions from to. So from draft to a regulatory review, from a regulatory review to translation. So using this administrative interface, you can start building these kinds of things. Personally, I can't imagine a more boring thing to do with my time than this, but you can do it. Right? You can, given enough time and patience and maybe bottles of beer, you can actually do an entire workflow system that way. But I will say that if I had to also include those back arrows, like the thing's going to go up exponentially, I would assume, right? Like it's not linear, because you want to be able to go from here to here, to here, to here. It's just, how do you get control of a system like that? How do you have all the flexibility you need, but not too much and not too little? How do you get minimal redundancy with an administrative UI approach like this? I would argue it's very difficult. This is Workbench's kind of dashboard. This is kind of primary offering. Fine. So instead of one big list, I see a little list and another list. Right? I also see potentially a picture of myself. Does anybody use this? What do you think of it?
I don't like it.
Why?
Well, I find that for regular editors it's quite complicated to understand what's going on. And for site super has all of super admin provides all of the permissions, it's too confusing in terms of what the editor actually sees, what you see, and how you actually manage content. So it's easier for me, for example, to go to the Drupal that you manage content.
And go fishing and take your chance that way. So too confusing, can I interpret that to mean there is too many things on the screen?
I don't find it's like user-friendly in terms of when you first time opening this interface. Transitions are not very straightforward when it first opens. You get used to it eventually, but it's not straightforward how draft goes from to in review, and I don't think that for moderators it's very straightforward to it. What if the reset created to jump back to draft, what should they do next? It doesn't trigger real action to the editor. So I think that there are some unspoken rules that needs to be discussed in the application to use it.
I like what you said. A lot of what you said a lot of great things, but it doesn't, how did you say it? It doesn't sort of get you to act. It doesn't guide you in that way. I would call it induction. It doesn't induce you to do the things that need to be done. I think that's a really important thing, because that's really how it flows. That's, from the point of view, we in physical bodies, we want to flow, we want to move forward. It's like walking, right? And if something's blocking you, it's frustrating. And if it blocks your energy, it feels painful. Do you find the same kind of thing?
Yeah, for us, it's like news in university. This is the best thing out there that image, copy across websites. So
Yeah, I see. Okay. So you kind of confirmed a lot of my suspicions. Okay. There's a lot of things here. Look at what happened to our states, right? They're all up there. And if you press my workbench there, you'll see them again. The same things exactly. So, this is an instance of what I would say is too exposed. Now, I'm not being completely fair, because if that, I believe, can be modified, you can actually control that, either through permissions or through some kind of special callbacks. I can't remember offhand. I'm not going to go into Workbench. I was going to do another site visit and sort of mess around with it, but I think I've kind of judged it enough, and you guys have spoken really well about it. Let's just skip it. But, it was a good attempt, but I think it's still painful. I think it still causes suffering. So, again, from that content manager's point of view, this is the simplest way of looking at it. We start from here, we go there, and that's all we need to know, right? So it has to do with the business intent. Why have we got that content there in the first place? And that why ultimately drives that whole thing, inducing you to act, right? It's an induction system coming through here, getting things tuned, getting things, prepared, getting things authored for a particular purpose, to solve that purpose, that intent, and you arrive at your final product, the content, and you ship it. Right? That's what it is in real human terms. So again, you have to think of who the users are and what they're trying to do with it, and that's what they're trying to do. In the case of a reviewer, for example, someone that has to come in and, okay, I have to make sure that we're not saying anything wrong about our ice cream, right? That everything we say can be, substantially supported legally, et cetera, right? This is where they come in. They don't care about this, they don't care about this or any of this. They just want to see what they have to do with it at that time. Everything else is redundant, shouldn't show up. So when you see all those lists of potential states and so on, it's just clutter. It's just too confusing, right? So here's another kind of use case. If we can have one intent, a business intent that leads to a certain content, for example, basic brand awareness, we want to put information about our brand out there so people get it and join on. Great, there's your fundamental content. But there may be seasonal things or particular events or whatever where you want to capitalize on that. It's Easter, so you do something with chocolates, right? So make an Easter version of your chocolate bar. So you do a seasonal promo. That's another intent, another potential piece of content, but it still goes through the same workflow. Issue awareness, maybe something's happening and you want to address that to let your market know and your customers know that you're aware of it too, and you support them in whatever that issue is. So it's a where we stand kind of content, and it may be that one piece of content has to go through these kinds of evolutions as real life happens. So maybe your standard web page for this piece, for this area, has to go through some kind of changes, which implies that you've got different versions of things for different occasions. So to me, it's a business case for versions. So just looking at some of the sort of the technical background to all of this. Workbench moderation versus StateFlow, which is an alternative. Workbench moderation is based on Workbench. It's sort of an extension of Workbench. StateFlow is an extension of State Machine. How many people have heard of State Machine, the State Machine module? Great. Okay. Oh, more over here. Good. How many people are familiar with the documentation for State Machine? There's
this is Drupal.org we're talking about, right?
Anywhere on the planet, right? I've seen 2 articles dating back to 2012, right, about the first version of. It's a good module, right? It does a lot of good things, but there's 0 documentation. And there's 1 video that I know of. Anyway, naively, I walked right into that one, and I started using State Machine because I don't like where this is going, right? I disagree with the strategy of Workbench, I'll be honest. What I liked about State Machine is that you can actually configure it to do things with minimal redundancy because it's at the code level. And then StateFlow comes from that. Now, I also learned that the first version, the regular release version, if it works at all, I didn't get it to work. Everything was fine except I couldn't publish anything. And I couldn't look up the documentation. So then I kind of eventually cottoned on that, it's the development version I'm supposed to be looking at, right? And so that's what I did. And anyway, this is the rationale that is on the, Drupal.org, I suppose, or somewhere. That says this is why State Machine exists. It's an API with a base module to allow developers to build their own workflow, whereas Workbench provides workflow administration exposed through the Drupal interface that does not provide a robust API. as a developer, I said, state machine, please, as long as it works, as long as I can publish. And this one I like too. State machine serves a need for those who want to customize, yes, extend, yes, and export, yes, their workflow within their projects. So we all try to get things exported because things have to get onto the live server. So anything that can help me with that, I appreciate.
Have you explored the workflow system?
No. You like it? Okay, so if we have time, we should talk about that. Okay, good to know. I kind of knew it was in the background somewhere, but I mean, you name something like workflow, and then you do a Google search on that. It's like, where's it going to get you?
Actually, the core, there's also revisioning.
What is it?
Revisioning is another one.
Oh yeah. Well, I learned something. So okay, so this is the interface of many beers. If you want to build that set of transitions and so on, this is the same thing in code, right? Set and forget, as far as I'm concerned. So I see that as, I mean, yes, I shouldn't dismiss it entirely. I know I am, but for some use cases or some clients or some websites, maybe it works, maybe it's enough. But I don't think they've got a very complex workflow, right? I think if you've got any feedback, for example, or any looping around, I don't think you'd really want to use that. I think you'd want to have something that you can really just pay a developer and have them put this stuff together, because this really, it's tactical and it's flexible and it's great. That's what administrative UIs allow you to do. They allow you to be tactical and change things whenever you want. So go around there, right? But this one is like, we're going here. It's strategic. This is our workflow. We know what it is. We define it in our business, and this is what we want in code. Encode it, please. That's why I like it. So the next generation I learned is interesting, because Workbench moderation is going to use state machine. So that's what they're working on now. This is all Drupal 7, by the way, but the same thing is going to happen in Drupal 8, but it's just still way, way back there. It's sort of happening, but it's off in the distance. And this proved to be the linchpin? Whatever, the thing that made a difference. I won't go into it, but developers will understand this, that Drupal, to allow you to do different revisions, there's the keyword, of content, it will make different instances of that stuff in the database, and it's got a special table to put all that information. But there's a trick, and that is Drupal has to know, which one do you really want me to publish? Because it could get confusing, right? You got too many things. Drupal could get confused, right? So there's a mechanism in Drupal. It probably has a name, I can't think what it is. But basically, it makes sure that if you make another version, sorry, it's a bit geeky, but all these things have numbers, right? And you have to give a number to it, so you can find it in the kitchen drawer again, pull out that number, thank you, there it is. So Drupal has to basically say, oh, you've just made something with a bigger number than mine, than the published one? Forget that, I'm going to make another copy, and I'm going to put mine on top of yours so I get the bigger number. Drupal does that, right? Which gives developers headaches, because they think they've got things under control, but Drupal's just in the back room gone and done something else. He said, no, you can't win this. I'm going to win this. So, and people were coming up with their own solutions for dealing with that situation. And then Catch, I believe, wrote this module as a one-stop shopping solution to that issue, so that these guys can all reference it and say, let's not worry about that problem anymore, let's just use this API, and then we'll leave it. So I just thought it was interesting that Workbench moderation is not only going through Drafty, but the new version of State Machine is based on Drafty. Because there used to be separate solutions, now it's one solution. I think that's a good thing. So, this is where I come in terms of what I wanted from a user experience point of view. StateFlow didn't quite do it for me. It was still too much like the low-level sort of interface. So I thought, no, I'm not going to say I thought. The people I work with have a very brilliant guy running their tech team called Steve Shattuck. He's wonderful to work with, and he just gets things right away. And so when I showed him my marvelous StateFlow implementation, he immediately said, yeah, but don't people want different versions of things? And, you know, they still don't want to see all these different revisions and all this kind of granular stuff. They just want to see that version. So he's the one that came up with that idea. It wasn't me, right? But I was very happy to hear it because it made sense, right? At least, you know, even as a developer with my developer head on, at least I recognized the sense of what he was saying because, yes, that's a good user experience. Let's build it. So I built something called StateFlow versions.